Hello, I just reviewed my video that I just shot for this video, and I somehow managed to naff up the intro, so I'll just reshoot exactly what I'm going to be talking about, and then I'll hand you over to the original video after I stopped naffing the intro up. So in this one, I'm just going to quickly go over a recent problem that I encountered with some of the products that I sell on my Etsy shop, how I found out what the issue was, how I overcame the problem, largely related to sort of filament moisture, print quality, and also some sort of design elements that you might find yourself needing to consider when you're also designing products for commercial resale. So yeah, so that's that. Enjoy the video or don't, it's entirely up to you. And hand over to previous me who shot loads of video and naffed it up. Thanks. So what I have here is my Stream Deck enclosure. This is actually a failed print. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's kind of the print bed left a little bit of a mark on here. So I'm just going to use this one as an example. So please don't judge me on my final print quality. This is one for the bucket of doom where all my dead stuff goes. So yes, I have here a Stream Deck enclosure which I sell on my Etsy shop, and I sell this with a bunch of different mounting brackets. I originally sold it just as a part that was compatible for mounting to a aluminium profile rig. So on the back of this Stream Deck enclosure there's a mounting bracket, and then we have like an extension arm which then has another mounting bracket on the other side, and that attaches to your aluminium rig. And then obviously your Stream Deck goes in here and you get a cover for the front, and there you go. That's the product. So a couple of months ago, somebody contacted me and they said, I don't have an aluminium rig, but I would like one of your Stream Deck enclosures. So is there any way that we can get it working on a tubular rig? So I had a little search around the internet, and I found a possible solution, which was to use, I haven't manufactured this. This is a standard GoPro mount. I say standard, it's a GoPro mount that you can buy on Amazon. They're not very expensive, 6 or 8 quid, something like that. And I thought, well, okay, you know, as I said, here we have the mounting bracket and we have the arm, and then I suppose in theory you could use one of these to attach it to your tubular rig. So maybe I can come up with a mounting bracket, an extension arm, an alternative extension arm here that would attach to this GoPro compatible mount. So I went over to Fusion 360 and I did a little bit of a design, and I came up with a solution basically for this chap, which I'm perfectly happy to do. So these are all failed prints I'm showing you here. This one has some curling on the edges. I think there was probably too much cooling going on the print bed, but this is the extension arm that I came up with. Is basically GoPro compatible in that it just has exactly the same dimensions as a standard GoPro mount. So I made one of these up for this guy, and I recommended that he get one of those devices, and basically this fits in here and that goes in there and attaches to you get the idea. Cool. And I thought, you know what, why don't I just make all of my extension arms compatible with this GoPro mount, and then I can just say it and supports a GoPro mount. So I did that. I went and Fusion 360 and I changed all of my extension arms and mounting brackets to have either just like a 3-piece or a 2-piece connecting part here. Cool, great, fab. So that's that. Sold it to the guy. He was happy. All fits great. So fast forward to a week ago, I sold a couple more of these, and within a couple of days of the people receiving them, they'd both reported that the mounting brackets had failed. And the mounting brackets and the extension arms actually in some cases. So interesting. I wasn't expecting that, but they both failed in exactly the same place, and they basically failed. Okay, so here's an example of what this mounting bracket looks like for the back of the enclosure. It just sits on there, you bolt it through, and you stick your mounting arm on there, and that's that. So they had failed when screwing in the thumb screw that you have here. There's like a little M4 nut that sits on the other side. And they've done it up too, well, I say they've done it up too tight. They've done it up tightly, and this bracket had failed. So this bracket had failed, and also this one had failed. When I originally designed these GoPro mounts, I did do some load testing. I put them on my own Stream Deck enclosure, and I used it in my own sim rig, and they seemed perfectly fine. So I was a little bit puzzled as to what was going on. So I quickly went over, did some prints, and sure enough, I could make these items fail in quite surprisingly easily. So I think so. I'll just give you an example. I'm not sure if these are going to fail because these are slightly older prints, but so in fact, there you go. That failed. I mean, that failed way too easily. I put barely any force in there, like this. And the same thing with these extension arms. Actually, maybe this was one of my failed test prints, but these extension arms fail in pretty. In fact, you can see that's, you know, if you put any force on there, that fails. Not great. So I was having a think about what was going on, because when I had originally done my testing, they weren't failing in this way. Excuse me. So what was going on? So, you know, I'd not changed. I'd gone back to the original design, and I'd done some test prints and printed them in exactly the same way, and sure enough, they were failing. So it was a little bit confusing. So I was reading around on the internet, as you do, source of all information, and I found that this fairly consistent warm weather we're having in the UK at the minute can cause your filament to take on a lot of extra moisture. And when you print with filament that takes on moisture, it can create brittle prints like that one there. That just failed very easily. I just snapped it apart. So I suppose that, in combination with the fact that, you know, these GoPro mounts, I expect they were not designed to be printed in this relatively soft PLA. I mean, I haven't actually printed these in PETG yet. They weren't designed for it. They were originally designed to be printed, you know, using metal, produced in metal. So what could I do? What could I do? So I went through a couple of iterations of, perhaps this is one. In fact, maybe it is. In fact, I think it may well be. So yeah. So I changed. I then changed the design and made these kind of fins thicker. I gave them more of an infill when printing, and that seemed to resolve a lot of the issues. But I still wasn't happy with how much these were flexing. There was a couple of different versions that I tried, and they were all kind of flexing in weird ways. And so basically what it came down to was the fact that I produced these GoPro compatible mounts for a customer, adopted them as my de facto mounting bracket, but then I didn't do the same load testing that I did with my original designs. I had just kind of assumed that everything would just work as it previously had, which was, you know, that's my own fault. I'm just going to call myself out on that. It doesn't help that the fact that the filament had taken on some extra moisture. That was just that was my bad. I didn't realise how much it had. So since then, I've bought myself a filament drying box, and all of my filament is now drying before I go ahead and sort of do any more prints. But you know, I didn't want to be in this situation again where, you know, me tightening these things up may well not be the same as somebody else tightening these things up. Somebody else may apply gosh knows how much pressure compared to me. So I wasn't happy with this design. So what I actually ended up doing was I ended up reverting to something akin to my original design, which was a mounting bracket like this. So as you can see, it no longer adopts the GoPro compatible mount, at least not on the brackets, on the bracket sides. It uses roughly the same amount of material, but instead of having 3 relatively thin fins here, I have two relatively fat fins, and on the other side I just have this block here, which is much stronger. So you know, if you wanted to use, if you wanted to mount your Stream Deck to your sim rig directly, you could just do it like that without using the extension arm. Or, you know, I did the same. Basically, I did the same thing with the extension arm here. Was just two fins and this block on this end. So, you know, if you wanted to use the extension arm, there you go. It's all right there. And then your thumb screws just fit in like this, and away we go. So yeah, that was a pretty hard lesson learned from me on that one. Unfortunately, it resulted in a couple of customers contacting me saying, you know, this item has failed, which obviously I do not want. But thankfully, I was able to get these, get them some new, you know, do some testing and get some reverted, I guess, but newly designed parts out to them. Thankfully, Royal Mail delivered on the weekend, and they were able to get them relatively quickly, which I'm really happy about. So yeah, so I mean, just real quickly, I suppose what I did in the end, as I say, yeah, got rid of the GoPro compatible parts, at least from these sides, because they're not actually directly needed. And what I've done with my extension arm here is, yeah, similar sort of thing, two on one side, block on the other side. But also I've changed the design to add a little bit of additional rigidity. So as you can see here, I'm not sure if you can tell very well on there, but I have actually printed these. I've designed these with like a little, I suppose it's like a channel cut into all of the faces of the item, a little triangular channel. And so the idea is whenever you have a face, it has a wall, and a wall is much stronger than an infill. And so the fact that I have a wall here and a wall here and a wall here and so on and so forth, I'm just adding additional rigidity to these parts. Similarly with these here, I've sort of created these kind of indents that follow the profile of the face. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. You sort of see the idea there. That just adds additional rigidity and just basically means that these parts are now much stronger. Like I cannot, there's a little bit of flex in there, but I absolutely cannot break these parts, which is fantastic. Same with this, which is the primary parts that failed. I can't break them. So yeah, lesson learned. If you're doing something, if you're changing up a design, make sure you go and do exactly the same load testing that you did originally with any of your parts, because don't just think that because it looks nice, it will be. You don't want to upset customers. So yeah, I mean, I suppose ideally I shouldn't really be printing these in PLA. I should probably be doing them in PETG or at least PLA Plus, which is 4 or 5 times stronger than standard PLA. So, but you know, the fact that I've printed these just using standard PLA and they are super tough means that, you know, when I do print them eventually in PETG or PLA Plus, then they will be almost unbreakable. Perhaps, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't want anybody challenging me on that. So yeah, there you go, little lesson learned. Don't just assume that because a big company like GoPro has designed something that it translates particularly well to 3D printing, because it might not, and you might need to find your own way. I should just mention these are the new mounts for my Stream Deck enclosure, the 2 mounting brackets, the extension arm. There will be a version of this extension arm that is GoPro compatible on one end, so it'll probably be this end here, in fact. Because this is what goes to the sim rig. So yeah, I will create a version of this extension arm that does have these strakes here, but I will do something to make it much more rigid, so that it's still can be used on a tubular, or well, on any tubular profile, I guess. But yeah, so that's coming. I've not quite designed that one just yet, but yep, there we go. That's my little lesson from this week. I hope that was useful to any of you guys. As I said, this product, now that it's my filaments are drying and I have these new revised stronger arms. The product is now available in my shop again. So yeah, if you're interested in a Stream Deck enclosure, it supports both Stream Deck 1 and Stream Deck 2, then head over to my Etsy shop. Something will be in descriptions over here or somewhere, I'm not entirely sure where, and grab yourself one. They're currently on sale, although not for much longer. So yeah, if you're looking for something like that, hit me up on Etsy. That's it. Thank you guys. If you could like this video, that'd be fab, and all of that other YouTube-y stuff. Thanks a lot. Cheers.